This podcast is sponsored by Great Seminars and Books. I know what many of you are thinking. Why pay for a course when I can watch a PowerPoint presentation and get free CEUs through my employer? But how many times do you leave energized or equipped with the latest evidence and even a game plan for how to better serve your patients the next day? Check out Great Seminars and Books and one of their many courses ranging from total joint arthroplasty to comprehensive rehab strategies for the geriatric patient. See how you can get $25 off a live course by going to seniorrehabproject.com/great. Hit me.
This is a Senior Rehab Podcast, the podcast for rehab clinicians that want to better serve older adults.
So, Dr. Chris Hinze, welcome to the show. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on, Dustin.
Yeah, no problem. So I wanted to bring you on because, we connected on Twitter a while back and I started perusing your website a little bit, and you've got a lot to say on fall prevention. And I just found it really interesting. So I wanted to have you on to discuss, how we can prevent falls in older adults. Before we get started into that, could you tell us, what you're doing now and kind of how you got up to the position where you are now?
Sure. Well, thanks again for having me on. I graduated with my DPT degree in 2008 from Oakland University, and at that time I really didn't have much interest in geriatrics. I moved up to Traverse City, which is kind of in the northwest corner of Lower Michigan, and started working in outpatient ortho for a PT in private practice, and just kind of got into the lifestyle up here, which is, it's a real active town, a lot of great outdoor activities, and just kind of was pretty content for a couple of years. And then a few years later, I was recruited by my current employer, who is the Grand Traverse Pavilions, to come aboard and join their team. And at the time, I was just kind of, I was content in my position, but I wasn't really looking for something. But this opportunity presented itself, and it was a good one. I was getting to the point where I was finding myself enjoying working with the older adult client, more so than just your maybe your average athlete or your average orthopedic client. I really connected more with the older adults. So this opportunity presented itself, and where I work now, it's called the Grand Traverse Pavilions, and it's kind of a unique place. We call ourselves a multi-generational residential community, and what we are, I guess we're mostly well known for being a skilled nursing facility, but we also have a big campus. So we have a skilled nursing facility that we have 3 separate assisted living residences. Wow. We have some independent living apartments, and then where I spend the majority of my time is we have an outpatient physical therapy or outpatient rehab center with a community wellness center. So that's where I spend most of my time, and I've been here now since 2011. So I just hit my 4-year mark at this facility, and really happy here. I see primarily older adults, mostly with balance issues or just general pain complaints. Starting to get more into fall prevention. Now that we have direct access here in Michigan, getting a little bit more out into the community and letting people know that they can access physical therapy without a referral. So trying to get those people, before they fall is becoming a big interest of mine. So that's where I am now.
That's awesome. How are you going about trying to educate the public on direct access in Michigan?
Sure. It's starting with blogging. I mean, that's sort of one of the main reasons that I wanted to start blogging, was just to try to get information out to the public on, what is physical therapy. That's kind of what I started with, is like, what is physical therapy? What is it that we do? I wrote a blog post about direct access in Michigan. I wrote multiple blog posts about, different ways we can prevent falls. So that's one thing I started with. Looking at some of the analytics for the blog, I was noticing, I wasn't reaching as many readers as I had hoped. Especially readers in the demographic that I was shooting for. I mean, if you read my blog, it's really not intended for other clinicians. I mean, right. It's great that y'all are reading it, and I really appreciate that. But really, I started blogging to try to get information out to the public, and I noticed I just wasn't reaching that, and probably I wasn't doing enough to get that out. I wasn't doing enough, marketing and that to get it out there. But one thing I started to do recently, I just wrote my first letter to the editor in our local newspaper, and it wasn't really in the letters to the editor column, but it was given kind of more of a standalone section, and the response I've gotten from that one letter has been incredible. I mean, the morning it was in the paper, I probably had 20 people come into the clinic and say, "Hey, I saw you in the paper," and
Wow.
I've never had one person come in and say, "Hey, I read your blog post."
Yeah.
Just this weekend I was at the farmer's market, and somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, I read your piece in the paper. Found it really interesting." And it was just a, kind of a brief piece on fall prevention. So I think I'm going to start doing more of that, especially along the direct access lines, letting people know that, hey, there are options for you. You don't necessarily have to see your physician first. You can, if you're concerned about falling or concerned about, loss of strength or function, come on in, let us take a look at you, and we'll get you where you need to be.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome that you got that response. Cause I feel like, somewhat the easy part is producing the information and even, putting it on the internet. But the hard part is to find out where your intended audience actually is and, how they consume information, whether, it's a newspaper, like you were saying, or, TV commercials or, Facebook or, whatever it is. But
Right.
yeah, and I think that's a challenge for us, especially in the internet age when we're working with our older adults. But I mean, I've been really surprised just how tech savvy a lot of my patients are, for sure. And I think that's definitely changing pretty quickly.
I agree. Yeah, and it's funny. I thought newspapers were dead, but clearly for that generation they're not. But yeah, you're right. The older adult is getting much more tech savvy, especially with this sort of, blossoming baby boomer population. I mean, they're pretty tuned into electronics, so we can start to reach them electronically too.
Yeah. So you're in this outpatient clinic basically, and when people come in that want to work with you, are they coming in with concerns about falls? Or are you having to basically show them, that they should be concerned, that they should be, concerned about improving their balance and making sure that they're, as stable as possible?
It's definitely a bit of both. Unfortunately, I see more people following a fall than I see seeking fall prevention services. And I'd love to see that paradigm start to shift. And I think PTs are the ones that are going to make it happen. But typically, my typical patient is somebody who comes in following a fall. If they fell at home, most of the time, maybe they haven't gotten a serious injury, maybe a sprain or strain or a significant bruise or anything like that. They go to the doctor to discuss it, and they're referred to physical therapy. So we get them on the back end of the fall.
Yeah.
We in our skilled nursing facility, I get to see the more severe cases that result in your hip fractures, head injuries, things like that, where people are hospitalized because of the fall, require subacute rehab before a return home, and then sometimes get discharged to home and then come see me as an outpatient. So I get to see the whole spectrum, and I definitely do see some folks who present just with a concern in balance decline or strength decline, who have not experienced a fall but are seeking some help. And really, those are the people that I absolutely love to work with, because it's prevention. It's hopefully working with that person, looking at the whole person, finding out what exactly their concerns are, what their goals are, and trying to help them meet them.
Yeah. There's nothing like that proactive patient. I love it. But not everyone's like that, but that's okay.
Right.
So when someone comes in, to the door, you talk to them, you discuss their goals. In terms of fall prevention, what's some of the low-hanging fruit that you address typically with some of these people? Just the very easy, quick fixes that will reduce their risk of falling. Sure.
I think two of the easiest ones are home safety modifications and footwear modifications. Those are two areas that I think can have an almost immediate impact in reducing someone's risk for falls. Like, it's summertime. So let's say an older adult comes in, they're in their late 70s, 80s, not the greatest balance, maybe a bit of a shuffling gait, and they're wearing flip-flops. Boom. There's an easy one. Recommend a couple, styles of footwear. I've got a couple great shoe stores here in Traverse City that really understand older adults and fall risks and stuff, and know a good shoe for an older adult. So, I'll send them down the road and say, hey, check out one of these places. They'll set you up with a good pair of shoes. And then, home safety modifications. I've got a couple good handouts that I use just to give people some immediate ideas. Removal of throw rugs, good lighting to and from the bathroom at night, uncluttered walkways, grab bars in the bathroom. I mean, relatively simple things. Grab bars aren't quite as simple because they require some installation, but getting people thinking along those lines on ways to make their environment safer, I think are two things that we can really have a quick impact on somebody's fall risk.
Yeah. Yeah. The home modifications for me in home health, that's been somewhat of a struggle because, we'll come into the home and, assess and make these recommendations to, take this throw rug out or move this piece of furniture here and here and here. And, some people are pretty receptive to it, but man, a lot of people really, really fight it. It's such a, tough situation, I think, to be in as a therapist when you're going into someone's home, that probably has been, in the same shape or, design, for the past, 2 or 3 decades. And we're saying, do this, do that, change just kind of what they're used to.
Right.
So yeah, I feel like it's super important to present in a way that's, that you're making a recommendation. You're not forcing it on them, but just, giving them the information in a way that they can, do something with it if they want to.
Sure.
And I like what you said about the footwear too. That's pretty huge. How did you establish that relationship with the shoe stores in your town?
I guess just some mutual referrals back and forth, and I needed a place where I knew if I sent someone to look at shoes that they were going to get good service and be listened to. And there are 2 places in town that I know that if you walk in their door, and number one, I'm a customer at one, and then 2, I've heard too many good stories about the other one for it to not be true. Yeah. It's just when you walk in their door, they're gonna listen to you. They're not gonna just sell you, what's on sale or what's being pushed at a big box store. Yeah. They're gonna fit you with the proper shoe that you need. So. And I'll call ahead of time sometimes and say, hey, I'm sending, Mrs. Smith over to you. She's looking for a low heel height, just well-fitting shoe to wear around the house, and then they'll take care of her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have, like a handout or anything? You mentioned the handout for home modifications. Do you have the same thing for footwear that you'll give these people?
I wrote a blog post on footwear earlier this year, and I have printed that out for a few folks just because it has a little bit of it gives kind of a model of a ideal shoe, and then it does give some of the facts that that improper footwear can lead to increased fall risk in that. So it gives people a little bit of data, and then it gives them kind of an actionable task then, when they can take that model and take that to their shoe store. So I have used that. I can't say I have a great handout other than that blog post, but if any of your listeners or anybody has something, that'd be great if they could, share it with us.
Yeah. And I'll definitely include a link to that post.
Okay.
And any links that we mentioned, they'll be in the show notes for sure for people to look at. So in terms of movement exercise, just our specialty, I know every person's different that walks in the door, but do you have some forms of exercise or treatments that are kind of your go-to in terms of, you just had really good results with using?
Mm-hmm. I've gotten a lot more probably in the last 12 to 18 months, really interested in loading my older adult patients. I think for the first couple of years of my career, I was a little bit too passive. Was a little bit too easy with exercise, and the evidence shows us that's not what we need to be doing with our older clients. We need to be, if we're going to strength train them, we need to strength train them, and we need to load them. And obviously we need to do that slowly, safely, appropriately. We need to screen that they're appropriate to be loaded. But when I say loading, I mean, starting with a sit to stand exercise, and maybe slowly adding weight or resistance to that, lowering seat heights, things like that, where, you show them it's an easy exercise that they can do at home, teach them ways to progress it at home. weighted squats, weighted leg press, different lunging techniques, floor transfers, things like that. And I know you're really into the kettlebells, Dustin. That's something that I don't have access to in my space, but just different ways to get people moving under load, I think is probably my go-to. And then I definitely do incorporate, dynamic static balance exercises. I do a lot of things with eyes closed, trying to, enhance somatosensory awareness and things like that. But a lot of it is finding out what type of exercise the client likes. I mean, if they're a former gym rat and they just love pushing weight around, that's really where we'll spend our time. Or, maybe they've got a background in yoga or Pilates, so I'll try to incorporate things more like that. Or they're interested in Tai Chi, so I've got a PT colleague that I work with who's a Tai Chi instructor. So I may refer that client to another therapist, or to a community-based class. So I do have my bread and butter, but then I do try to listen to what the client enjoys and likes, because if it's not a mode of exercise that they're going to buy into, the compliance just isn't going to be there. And we know, a minimum of effective dose for exercise for fall prevention is, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 hours. And chances are you're not going to accomplish that 50-hour dose within an episode of care. So they're going to have to carry over and do this either at home or in the community. And if they're not interested in doing it, if they don't like it, you're not going to hit that dose.
Yeah. So with, trying to find what they're interested in, or what else do you consider when you're doing, like a home exercise program, and you're trying to get people to make, exercise more of a habit, that's going to stick, that's more sustainable over the long haul. What all goes through your mind when you're trying to pick what these people should do?
That's a good question. Again, starting with what form of exercise they like. I mean, if they seem to really latch onto the balance exercise, I mean, if they come in and they say, I need exercises for balance, I need to improve my balance. Well, I'll kind of go more that route and get into more, eyes closed, dynamic stepping type things, and really, practice it with supervision in the clinic till they feel really comfortable with it. And then teach them, okay, here's how you can do it at home today, and here's how you can progress this over time to make it more difficult. And I write this all out for folks because, I certainly don't expect them to, remember everything that I say. So I start with that, and I also try to find out what sort of equipment they might have at home, or if they have access to a gym facility or a wellness center in their community. I'll try to find that out. If they don't, but they sound interested, I'll certainly try to steer them in that direction. We've got a great YMCA here in Traverse City that really does a great job catering to older adults. They offer senior discounts for their membership, which I think they do across the country. But getting in a facility like that where they can progress their strength training, where they can do it, under a little bit of supervision because there's some staff there. And they also can, tap into that community and start to meet other seniors who, are probably going through similar things, and they can, kind of latch on to maybe a small group and really get that social aspect that can be so vital for that population.
And I wanted to jump back to Tai Chi as well. I've got no experience with Tai Chi whatsoever, but I see it used a lot with older adults. Right. Could you fill me in on what it is exactly?
Sure. I'm probably not. I'm not as well versed in it as I'd like to be. It's a form of. I'm sorry if I'm misrepresent it, but it's a form of martial art. And that's about all I know. I know it's a great form of exercise. It's got a ton of research behind it showing that it's effective in fall prevention. So whenever I have a patient who's interested in it, I defer to my colleague, and unfortunately I haven't picked up as much from her as I should. We tend to work alternating days in the clinic, so we don't get a lot of chance to sort of shoot ideas off each other. And she does teach Tai Chi at a separate facility. So if somebody is looking more for a community-based class, I'll just refer them off to her. So I don't really have much experience or knowledge on it, other than that I know it's beneficial. And if somebody's interested or I think they're a good fit, I'll refer them to that colleague.
Yeah. Is this a physical therapist that works there?
Yeah. She is a physical therapist. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'll have to look look into that, because I've just been seeing it all over the place,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just really interesting, I think. But then also just to have another source to refer to, with people that are out in the community,
Mm-hmm.
I think is huge.
Exactly.
So something else that you've written on that I thought was really interesting was aquatic PT.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you all have that a facility that can do aquatic therapy there where you work?
We do. Yeah, we have a 30,000 gallon pool here. It's a specific therapy pool in that it's not a long pool where one would swim laps. It's a relatively small pool. It does have a deep end. It's got about a 30-foot track where folks can do some walking, and I do get in the pool with patients. I probably see maybe about 15 to 20% of my caseload in the water, and that might fluctuate. It might go up and down a little bit based on clients' needs and things like that. But it's an interesting modality for folks who, I think it works best for people with weight bearing restrictions following surgical procedures, fractures, things like that, because then they can get immersed in maybe chest depth water or a little bit above or below that, and they might be partial weight bearing on land, but can get in the water and start to move and sort of resume a natural movement pattern and get back to walking and squatting and things like that.
Yeah.
Under decreased load. So that's where I think it really can have a great effect. People with persistent pain problems, fibromyalgia, significant osteoarthritis tend to respond really well to exercise in the water.
Yeah. That's pretty impressive when you talk about all these resources that you've got available at your facility. I mean, that's pretty amazing. You've got, it seems like everything at your fingertips.
It's pretty awesome. The cool thing about my day is, I never have a chance to get bored, because I might start off my day with a 7:00 patient in the pool, and then I might get out and see somebody in the gym. Then I might run over to our AL facility and treat somebody in their apartment. Then I might finish my day down in our subacute rehab center, seeing a new patient that comes in. So it's pretty cool. We definitely have a lot of resources here, and keeps me really engaged, because I'm doing so many different things. I really enjoy that.
Yeah. And I'm sure you envision you would be doing exactly this job when you were, probably 22, 23 years old in PT school, right?
Yeah. No, I was like everybody else. I thought I was going to be working, on the sidelines with the Cleveland Browns, and I was going to be their, head PT. And,
why would you do that?
Yeah, I know, right? But I couldn't take all the losses, so I had to find something different. No, I definitely did not think I'd be in geriatrics. It was not the sexy part of PT school by any means. But the more I started working with this population, just the more I fell in love with it. You really get to connect with these clients. They really, really, really value what you offer them, and that just means a lot to me. Not that it's all about me, of course, but I like to make a difference in people's lives, and this is a population where I feel like we have a real special opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and that's very, very common. I kind of went down the same route as well, just wanting to go into the sports realm, but just over time, you find out what you enjoy. And I think the interesting part is I was reluctant to accept the fact that I enjoyed working, with older adults, or even specifically in home health. Honestly, because I viewed home health as kind of, the bottom rung of the ladder in terms of PT, which is completely wrong.
Right.
I have a biased opinion because I am a home health PT now, but yeah, it's just interesting, just these biases that we go through school with and thinking, one setting's better than the other. But that's just completely false. So what was it a rotation that you had in school where you started to see things a little differently, or what was it in particular, in terms of your experience, that led you to want to pursue working with older adults?
It was really once I got into clinical practice and started, working with patients, that my clinical affiliations were pretty standard outpatient ortho affiliations. I had one in pediatrics and then one in inpatient rehab. But it wasn't really till I got into clinical practice and started, really being able to immerse myself into these, clients' lives and really get into the meat of the plan of care and find out, who are the patients I really enjoy working with. And I don't think you know that until you've got a couple years of clinical practice. And I'm glad I had this opportunity, because I really didn't even seek this position out. It was, I was sort of recruited to come here, and this facility was growing, and they were, looking to add some team members, and I was one of the ones that they sought out, and so I really sort of fell into this position. But I knew going into it that I was starting to enjoy more and more working with older adults. So it actually turned out to be a great fit at the right time. And it just, I'm here 4 years, and I don't see myself leaving anytime soon. I definitely have an interest maybe at some point of doing something in the private practice world. But with 2 little ones, it's certainly not the right time for me right now.
Yeah.
And I'm really, really happy where I am right now and doing what I'm doing. So it's a great fit for me at this time.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm sure that's really encouraging, for somebody listening that, is just kind of struggling with, what area they want to focus on in PT and who they want to work with. But yeah, I'm just really encouraged by your story to know that, we can think outside the box of sports, ortho.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's sort of I think there's kind of a lot of maybe peer pressure sort of in PT school to kind of be, in that world. I mean, that's sort of where the cool kids are, right? They're all in the sports and manual therapy, and those are, really great fields with great skill sets. But, I feel like geriatrics is sort of, it's I don't know, it's not the cool field of physical therapy when really it can be. I mean, your skill sets are different. I mean, you've got to be able to, evaluate multiple systems. You've got to be really keen on your cardiopulmonary skills, and you don't get to use your hands maybe as much. But I still do a lot of manual therapy with my older adults.
Right.
It's still important to get your hands on them, and if they need that but it's just a little bit different.
Yeah, and I found too that a lot of the things that I'm interested in, or I've spent a lot of time reading and studying and whatnot in terms of the orthopedic realm, and even fitness, and even the big functional fitness trend, with CrossFit and kettlebell training and MoveNet and all these different modes that a lot of this stuff can be very applicable to older adults. And I think we as physical therapists are in a really, really good position to be able to utilize what these other people are doing
Sure.
with these older adults in a safe, effective manner, because we've got such a good knowledge of the aging process and just what an aging body can handle or can handle. So yeah, that's been neat to see. So let me ask you a few questions wrapping up. What would you tell your 20-year-old self, Dr. Hinze, in terms of your profession, your career? What encouragement would you give your 20-year-old self?
Sure. What would I tell my 20-year-old self? I'd probably tell my 20-year-old self to do what you plan to do, which at 20 was about the time I decided to focus on physical therapy as a profession. I was about in my second year of undergrad, and I was undecided for a couple of years, and then narrowed it down to PT. And I would tell myself to go the exact same route I have. I mean, maybe that's cheesy, but I've got a great family. I've got 2 awesome kids, a wonderful wife. I've got a great job. I live in a beautiful area. So I'd tell myself to stay the course.
Yeah. What led you into PT school around that age?
I was in my second year of undergrad. I knew I wanted to pursue a health-related field. I wasn't exactly sure what. And I saw an ad in the paper for a job at a physical therapy clinic as a PT tech. So I applied for that job. I worked at that clinic for, 6 years. So my last 2 years of undergrad and then 4 years of PT school. So after about 6 months, I decided this is a really cool field. There were a couple great therapists there who just had an incredible ability to connect with patients. That's I don't remember the things they did necessarily, but I remember a lot of the things they said, and I remember just the way that they would connect with patients, and I got to see that over a course of time and said, man, this looks like a really cool field. This is something I can get into. So after about 6 months there, I declared a health science major with a sort of, I think it was a pre-PT focus, and sort of narrowed my focus down to PT school, and the rest is history.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, here's another one.
Sure.
Let's say you're in a room and you've got every physical therapist in this room that works with older adults, and you could say one thing to them that you would want them to take action on. What would that be?
That's a great question. I think if I could talk to all of us geriatric PT folks, I think the message that I would like to put out there is that as a group, we should own fall prevention management for the older adult. I think there's so much evidence out there that shows that older adults over 65 need to be screened for falls. And that's screening is simple, right? It's asking, have you fallen in the last year? Do you have any trouble with walking or balance? And then maybe putting them through a quick walking screen or a timed up and go or something like that. I mean, it takes 30 seconds to screen for falls, and then they screen positive. We get them into a multifactorial assessment. If people want more information on that, there was a great clinical guidance statement in the PT Journal, June of this year, and that sort of focuses on the things we need to be assessing. And I think PTs are in the perfect position to own this. I mean, we're the ones who get to spend an hour doing an evaluation with clients. Primary care physicians get 5 minutes per encounter. Physical, they might get a little bit longer, but they're looking at the person's entire health status. I think PTs need to own this fall prevention. I think we're skilled enough. We have enough time. I think we're in the right position, and this is an area we need to own. And during that assessment, if we find something that's not within our scope, then we refer out. If they've got too many medications, if there's a visual impairment, if there's a cardiac issue, we know where to refer. But fall prevention should be our bread and butter, and every therapist working with older adults should be aware of how to screen and how to assess someone's fall risk.
Boom. You heard it, PTs. Own it.
Own
fall
it.
Prevention kings.
We need to be. I mean, there's pharmacists are screening for falls and taking care of that from the medication angle, and that's great. OTs do a great job with the home assessment and that, and some of the exercise pieces. I'm sure there are other professions doing great things too, but I think PTs are in a great position where we can look at the whole person and we can assess all these different areas, and most of them we can intervene on. I mean, footwear, home safety, exercise. Even diet. I mean, these are things that therapists can intervene on, and then, we can screen the other ones and refer out when necessary.
Agreed. Completely agreed. I couldn't have said any better. That's awesome. So I think that's a good place to wrap up. Dr. Chris Hinze, thank you for, just all the information that you've given. I'll put all the links, in the show notes for all the articles, your blog posts.
Great.
And that PT Journal article you talked about. Was it June 2015, right?
June 2015. I think it was Keith Avon was the lead author on there, but a number of really good authors on that paper.
Okay. So if anyone is listening that has questions, what's the best way to contact you?
Either through Twitter. My Twitter handle is CHinze DPT, CHINZE DPT. I'm fairly active on there. With two kids, I don't tweet as often as I'd like to now, but that's probably the best way to get a hold of me. If there's just a quick question you want to engage on Twitter, or you can shoot me an email at cjhinze@gmail.com. That's CJHINZE @gmail.com.
Okay, and then your website. What's the URL for your website?
Sure, that's physiotherapyforlife.com.
Okay. Were you from Canada or something?
No.
I'm just kidding.
I've always enjoyed the term physiotherapy.
Yeah, it sounds so much cooler than physical therapy. Let's be honest.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right. Well, thanks again for your time. I appreciate it, and I know everyone else that listened appreciates it as well.
Well, thanks a lot for having me on, Dustin. I appreciate talking to you.
Hit me. Thank you for listening to the Senior Rehab Podcast. If you enjoy this content, I highly encourage you to go to seniorrehabproject.com, where you can find more helpful episodes lots of free resources, and to see how you can become a game changer and influence the direction of this movement. I appreciate you, and I'll talk with you soon. But in the meantime, do not forget to stay funky. This podcast is sponsored by Great Seminars and Books. I know what many of you are thinking. Why pay for a course when I can watch a PowerPoint presentation and get free CEUs through my employer? But how many times do you leave energized or equipped with the latest evidence and even a game plan for how to better serve your patients the next day? Check out Great Seminars and Books in one of their many courses ranging from total joint arthroplasty to comprehensive rehab strategies for the geriatric patient. See how you can get $25 off a live course by going to seniorrehabproject.com/great. This podcast is brought to you in partnership with the Geros Collective, a podcast network that's redefining old and equipping healthcare clinicians to better serve our aging population. Find out more at GEROScollective.com.